Proverbs 4:23 says, "Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the springs of life." This verse is one of many passages in the Bible that point to the reality that man is made up of two distinct yet intertwined parts, that we have been made by God with a physical body as well as an immaterial element of our being, with the word heart being one of the most used words in the Bible to refer to this immaterial part of man. What this verse also lets us know is that the heart, our inner man, is what drives our actions of the outer man. That from out of the heart comes the way that we live. That we do what we do because of what is bound up in our hearts. In other words, what the Bible makes clear is that what our hearts value is what influences the way that we live. And question 10 wants you to think about this dynamic, which has massive implications for why and how we do biblical counseling. Because this question helps us think through both our focus and our limitations when it comes to counseling. Our focus is to be on the heart, the inner man, and how the heart influences the actions and behaviors of a person, as well as how the physical circumstances of life influence the heart. But we're not medical doctors, which means that it is good and right for us to point our counselees to medical professionals for physical ailments of the body. So when it comes to defining the terms for this paper, it is important that you have a good and concise, biblically supported description of the term dichotomy and of the phrase, the dichotomous view of man. It would also be wise for you to briefly describe the other main views of monism and trichotomy, and the distinctions between all three views. Monism is primarily a secular view of man that says that we are simply a physical body, and that any counseling problem we face is a simple malfunction of our biology, and thus the only change that is needed is through the right medication or simple behavior modification. Trichotomy says that we are three parts: body, soul, and spirit. And when it comes to counseling, the implication is that each part needs to be addressed separately by three different professionals, with the physical body needing to be cared for by a doctor, the spiritual part of us is to be cared for by the pastor, and the soul is to be cared for by the psychologist, which at best attempts to mix biblical and secular views of man in order to help people. As you can infer from the way the question is asked, ACBC holds to a dichotomous view of man. So please make sure to give a clear and well-supported description of the position that you hold. Because if you hold to a position that is different than ACBC, that may require further conversations between you and ACBC before you can move forward in the certification process. When it comes to Bible verses to reference, Proverbs 4:23, as we discussed previously, is a good one to include. Matthew 10:28 is also a helpful passage, for it is here where Jesus talks about the eternal nature of both body and soul. Luke 6:43-45 is a good passage that we often use in biblical counseling to highlight the need for change to take place within the heart and how we must treasure the Lord above all things. And 2 Corinthians 4:16 is a really encouraging verse that lets us know that even though our bodies grow old and deteriorate, our inner man grows stronger and stronger more and more as we walk with the Lord. A good outline for this question would be to cover such things as a good biblical description for the dichotomous view of man, including scriptural support and how it is distinct from the trichotomist and the monistic views of man. You should also briefly touch on the fact that biblical counseling does care about the body, the outer man, but it is limited in what we can address since biblical counselors are not medical doctors, but we encourage our counselees to receive good and adequate medical care when needed. Finally, you should include a discussion about the inner man as the focus of biblical counseling, and thus where real and lasting change is to take place, along with how this change takes place first in salvation and then continues through the process of sanctification, and how this inner change will affect the outer man in terms of righteous actions and behaviors, as well as in wise choices in living a life that is pleasing to the Lord.